Welcome in on a Tuesday, 3304 Daily, February 22nd, 2022. So a lot of twos in the date today. Dan Steinbach, Ryan Wilkes in our producer's chair. We're joined at the moment by Wyatt Krieger. All right, lots to get into today. We got some LeBron news we meant to get to yesterday. Yesterday was just a jam-packed show, a very successful show, I might add. So we've got a little bit of LeBron news coming up. We want to start off talking a little bit of spring football. Wyatt's got some updates for us on Aaron Rodgers, as well as just another look around the quarterbacks and their situations in the NFL. And then we've got Ryan. He has something on the NBA 75 list, which has been kind of a big story with the NBA at the moment. That's been very popular with All-Star Weekend happening this past weekend. But, I mean, let's start off, tooting our own horn a little bit. Yesterday, we started out with What You Watching, our very first official day, of the segment. And I don't think last night could have gone any better for the decisions that we offered up here. I went with some women's basketball action. One of the best players in the country, and maybe the front runner for the Wooden Award, Caitlin Clark in Iowa. She played spectacularly. Like, they had an awesome second half comeback against Indiana. She went 29, 8, and 8 in the box score. And then their center, whose name is escaping me at the moment, she dropped 31 points in a dominating win. So those two really led a fantastic game. It was really fun to watch. Ryan offered you up Ohio State, Indiana. A really good matchup there. Goes to overtime. That game was in Columbus, if I'm not mistaken. And, yeah, just an exciting game. So another great matchup there. Then we offered you up TCU, West Virginia. TCU, a bubble team that we talked about yesterday. Close first half. They're able to pull away late. So some late dramatics there. And then, man, I don't think you can encapsulate last night's excitement more than Baylor, Oklahoma State. Baylor, one of the best teams in the country, goes on the road in the Big 12, which has just been a slaughterhouse this season. And they have to go to OT. And, man, the last seconds of regulation are crazy. And that's the thing that we want to do with this segment is we want to offer you guys up, these matchups that have these late game dramatics. And Oklahoma State was so close. They were 0.7 seconds away from winning that game in the most nonchalant way possible. They missed the potential winning shot on their first attempt. Offensive rebound. Guy just flips it up over his head like it ain't no thing. And it goes in. But it was a shot clock violation, like I said, because of the very minuscule difference between the shot clock and game clock. And Baylor's able to walk away with an overtime win. But if that shot clock does not happen, it is probably the most absurd live end of game winning shot that I've ever seen. Again, if it counts. And it's funny too, because that's coming off like about a week ago, we're talking about Wake Forest coming up inches short of, beating Duke on a 70-plus footer to end the game. So, no, really good stuff tonight, or really good stuff yesterday. We hope to repeat. I mean, it's all downhill from there, basically. I can't imagine a better start. So, Ryan and I are going to challenge ourselves to give you guys some more stuff. And then, Wyatt, I'm excited to see what you bring to the table.
Of course, man. Yeah, I'm excited for the picks of the night.
Yeah, so we'll get you guys that up at the end of the show. And, yeah, no, it's just very exciting for this segment to get underway. All right, I want to start out with this. I want to start out talking a little bit of football, but not NFL football, not college football. I want to talk spring football because tonight is the draft for the USFL, another one of these attempts at a spring football league. And, look, the structure of this is different from what we saw with the AAF and the XFL, the recent, tries. And the XFL is still a thing. It's still kicking. It actually just came in the news a little bit. I'll get to them in a minute. But the structure of this is a little bit different. They're starting off really slow. They're only playing in one stadium. So there's not any travel. There's only 8 teams. Roster size, very small. It's less than 40 players. Like, tonight's draft is going to be 2 days, and it's 35 rounds. So you're going on the field with less than 40 players on your active roster, which is very small and could cause some issues. But in terms of money, which has been the factor that has led to these leagues getting closed so soon after starting, maybe this one has a better shot of at least completing a full season, which neither of the other leagues, being the AAF and the XFL, they weren't able to do that. So I think the question that I want to ask you guys and even our listeners now, is why hasn't spring football worked? Because honestly, I would love to see the USFL work. Really only mainly because I have a more regional team this time. I do actually have a team stationed in Michigan. Jeff Fisher being the head coach is just hilarious, by the way. But anyways, why does spring football not work? Football is, we've talked about it. It is the juggernaut of American sports, but for some reason, whenever we're done with the Super Bowl, we're just done. I see all these people, like just this past Sunday, everyone's saying this is the first Sunday in months of no football today. And what do I do with my Sundays? It's like, okay, well now you have this alternative. You have spring football again, but it just doesn't bring in the ratings. The first week or so does, just from curiosity, but it doesn't have that week over week over week staying power that the NFL does. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on why that might be.
I think it all starts with the quarterback play at the end of the day. I mean, in the NFL, you've got, like the 15 to 20 the absolute best in the world, the best quarterbacks in the world. So I think there's a huge drop off at just the level of play there when you're going from the NFL to another league. But I do think like it can work. I think you need to get a lot of that like outside circumstances to line up the right way. You need to find the right day to have it on because like you said, Dan, it's like once the Super Bowl is over, people just clear out their Sundays, start to go apple picking or whatever, the weather gets nicer. And I think that's one of the biggest things is finding, the right day to get the XFL or whatever, or the USFL, um, like a set day that everyone can tune in for. But I do think the XFL started to have some success before COVID, and you saw that translate into the NFL with guys coming straight from the XFL to the NFL, like PJ Walker, a pretty extended list of names there. So, I don't really know exactly the answer to that question, but I think it is possible. They just got to get, everything else right in order.
Well, I mean, I like your PJ Walker example. He is probably one of the more well-known players to go from one of these minor spring leagues into the NFL. Just getting a job. He's started some games. He's been a backup. I mean, another one to point out is obviously regionally, Taylor Heineke. Taylor Heineke started a playoff game, and he's coming from the Battlehawks of St. Louis from the XFL, I think that was, or was that in the AAF? I don't know. It was a long time ago at this point, but no, you're right. The XFL did have some success, and COVID was obviously the main killer. The AAF they ran out of money. That was their problem. I think that they tried to be too much too early, and there was just not enough consistent buy-in. But the quarterback point that you raise is, it's accurate to an extent because, yes, the talent level in these leagues is overall lower. I was reading, okay, what is this draft pool of players looking like? Well, we haven't had names be dropped. Like the USFL has not released a list of all the players that are going to be eligible in this draft pool. So that hurts us as consumers and as fans as being like, okay, I know these guys. I know these guys from college. I've seen them play before. I can get excited for them. They can be the faces of your league. We don't know that yet. So tonight, when we see who they draft, maybe a name comes out and it piques some interest. But I mean, they were in this article. They were listing names of players that have either just never sniffed an NFL roster, didn't do anything spectacular in college, or were already starters in these other leagues like the AAF and the XFL. And then they were throwing out these other names that have been in the NFL, like names of players that we remember from college mainly. Guys like Deshaun Kaiser and Cardell Jones, guys that played well and played at higher profile schools in college, but when they got to the NFL, that success just did not translate at all. So, and they even mentioned how someone like Blake Bortles, who is not really looked upon highly in the NFL, he's not going to step away from a backup job in the NFL or a third string job to come play in the USFL. That's not what he's going to do. So there's a little bit of realism that has to be taken into account here. It's like, okay, who wants to willingly just take the step back and say, hey, I'm not getting enough playing time at the next level. I'm going to step I'm gonna step back and you know, see if I can play in this new league and rewrite some narratives about myself and maybe get another chance at the NFL. So, yes, the talent level overall is probably the main driving factor. It's just not as good a product. We're not seeing we're not seeing Patrick Mahomes to Tyreek Hill in the USFL. That's not something we're going to see. So at the end of the day, I think that this new USFL, it feels destined to fail. But honestly, I also think with the way that they're structuring it early, I think this actually has a shot to at least complete a full season as compared to the other ones. Ryan, what are your thoughts on this? Oh yeah, you can go ahead, Wyatt.
So I just think that you kind of bring up an interesting point. I think one of the most important things this new USFL league could do, and it's going to be tough, but I think they need to get the buy-in from the NFL, because correct me if I'm wrong, when the XFL was doing its best, the NFL is still a completely separate, corporate entity, and it's a completely separate league. And I think if you want to succeed in this sort of lower level of skill type league in football, you have to have kind of feeder teams that are like within established NFL organizations. I think that's the best way they could go about it. Similar to minor league baseball having, their teams across the country playing. I think that's one way they could go about it. And also just getting the attention on it, having that full buy-in from the NFL would do wonders, I think, just for getting people to tune in.
Yeah, I'm totally with Wyatt when it comes to the star power. People want to see that. That's what draws people to watch it and to go to games. And I think the XFL honestly just brought some of these things to light, especially being that it showed they didn't have the funding to get through the rest of that season. They didn't have the support to be able to continue, and they want to come back, but that's a whole nother thing. But when they face a time where they can't have attendance, they can't have stuff like that, that's where it kind of everything started to come to light, and you realize that they didn't have the ability to finish a full season. Now I think this league can be interesting. It can be somewhat exciting to watch, but I was just kind of doing some research on who one of the top quarterbacks could be in this draft, because it is interesting how they're doing it round by round. It's by position, which is pretty interesting. But it seems like the number one pick or one of the top quarterbacks is going to be two-time Spring League MVP Brian Scott. I personally had never heard of this guy before now. And that's just, it's plays to Wyatt's point. Like, some of these guys you never really heard of. And, who knows? This guy seems like he's got a lot of, potential. In college, I think he threw for over 90 touchdowns and close to 10,000 passing yards. But it begs a point, is this going to be enough to get people to actually watch? I know former Tech quarterback, I think he played maybe a season, a little bit less than that with Tech. AJ Bush is going to be one of the quarterbacks possibly selected. So these are some guys that a lot of people probably haven't heard of. And, I think the only thing that might keep this afloat is the fact that there isn't much football until, for a couple months. So I think this might be enough to keep people interested and keep people, wanting to watch, because, people are going to want stuff to watch, especially being that, who knows when Major League Baseball will start back up. So like, there might not be anything to watch other than the NBA and a little bit of college basketball. So this could work out. And I think it's interesting how they're doing it. They're doing a draft unlike I've really ever seen before. So I think it'll be interesting to see where this whole thing goes and if it can stay afloat, because I think this might be kind of a last ditch effort at seeing if this thing can actually work, seeing if a different league can actually stay afloat. And I think this will be a big test.
All right, I do want to mention the XFL real quick, because Wyatt, you did mention that you think a way that these spring football leagues can be successful is if they go, minor league system. And the XFL is doing that. That is something that broke probably within the last 24 hours. The XFL is going to be partnering with the NFL, and they're describing it as a petri dish of sorts. Player development, referee development, rules testing. That the NFL and XFL are going to be hand in hand with this. So I think out of the gate, that makes the XFL more likely to sustain itself, because it's going to have the NFL backing it. They're going to try to make it their own minor league system, not even really the minor league system. I would comp it more to the NBA's G League, because minor league baseball it really is its own separate thing. They do work with the MLB, but you know, the NBA owns the G League. Like that it is their thing. So I think that the XFL, I think this is smart, and you know, I mean, we've heard this before. We've heard that they're going to be testing things. They're going to have quirks in the rules that'll be different from the NFL. But if this is something that we can see one day translate into the NFL game, you know, whether it be rules, the one that I'm excited about is referee training, because God, we need that. But you know, giving them that experience. So seeing how they do it with this, and they have a major, I think the XFL and the USFL, they have major TV outlets. Like they have major media partners. So the production should be on a high scale. So from an entertainment standpoint, I think they can be somewhat entertaining. It just comes down to, at the end of the day, you can try to throw all the neat tricks at us you want. At the end of the day, these aren't the best football players in the world. So we're not going to see the best quality game being played.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like that's why they've really got to nail the entertainment factor, because if they can get that right, the NFL is king. Football is king. People will watch football, but that's where I think the quarterback play becomes so important, because you know, football is still, you know, relative to at least basketball, it's still a somewhat slow sport. And you know, if the quarterback play really is struggling, then there's just not a lot of big plays, not a lot of offensive firepower. So if you can have good competitive games, that'll be huge for just getting this thing off the ground.
All right, so I think we'll leave it at that. So that is the spring football discussion. We'll see how the draft goes tonight. We'll see if like tomorrow, if like some crazy players get named. Like if we're seeing Johnny Manziel back in the world of football, that'd be nuts. And we might talk about that tomorrow. But that might be our only touching on spring football for a while, because again, there's a high chance this show lasts longer than a spring football league season. So we'll just leave it at that. All right, I want to get into something that we didn't have time to get into tomorrow. Before the top of the hour, I want to talk about a little bit about LeBron and something that he said over the weekend in Cleveland for All-Star Weekend. LeBron was asked about his future and about a potential return to Cleveland. I mean, the All-Star Game's in Cleveland. We know LeBron, all his storylines, starting the career there, going back, winning that championship. Now he's back in LA, and you know, hey, he could make another move before the end of his career. He's still got a couple years left on him, and he said that not only is the door open for him to return to Cleveland, the one thing that I think most people find more interesting is the fact that he said his final year playing in the league, he wants to play with Bronny. He wants to play with his son, who as of now is, I think it's the 2024 draft is what I've seen for his draft eligibility. So he's still got a little bit of a ways to go. 2 more years. After this year,
he's a junior in high school.
Yeah. And I mean, the immediate response to this getting out is, well, would you like to see your team make a move? Would you like to see your team draft Bronny just to get, even if it's 1 year of LeBron? And I mean, I think I'm just going to come out and say, yes, if I was a GM, I would do that. I understand the risks of overdrafting a player like that. But at the same time, if I understand it's a package deal, and LeBron also said money's not an issue at that point. Like, he wants to play with his son, and I would have to believe that. Now, do I think he's gonna like go to a team for the vet minimum? That I'm not so sure of. But if you can get a discounted LeBron James for a year for 1 draft pick, even if that draft pick doesn't turn out to be that great, GMs have kept their jobs picking worse players. I would totally overdraft Bronny to get 1 year of LeBron, because even by the time Bronny reaches the league, what's LeBron, like 39, 40? I still think his production is going to be good. Like, he's still probably going to be one of the top 30 players in the NBA. Right now, he's still top 5. And if you want to say he's slowing down due to injury, okay. I don't see him falling off a cliff. That's just not how LeBron James has been. People have been thinking that LeBron's going to fall off any moment now. For the last 5 years, you know, the entirety of his Lakers tenure. And then even when he went back to Cleveland, people were speculating, is he on a downturn in his career? Is he finally going to start slowing down? No, he hasn't scored less than 25 points per game, I think, since his rookie season. So whatever you get out of a LeBron James at age 39 is probably going to be better than 95% of the rest of the NBA. So drafting Bronny, overdrafting him, I would be totally down with that if my GM was in position to make that move. But also, I mean, what do you guys think about the idea that Bronny right now, he's not like this blue chip prospect. He's not a 5 star. I believe he's a 4 star, but at the moment he does not have any offers. Uh, is that going to change? Like, is this news going to see him get offers from guys like Calipari at Kentucky? Is someone gonna, call out to him and say, "Hey, let's get you here"? I don't care if you're not the highest rated recruit. I just want you. I want that LeBron James. I want that Clutch Sports clout. Should Mike Young do this? 540-216. No, I'm kidding. But no, honestly, just like I want to get your guys' reactions to the whole thing.
I think it's really cool. On paper, it's going to work. One, like a team is struggling for. There's so many struggling NBA franchises that will overdraft on Bronny in the lottery just to get LeBron on their team, and that's great. But I could also see it, turning out not that great because for starters, like you said, Dan, Bronny Jr.'s not this surefire lottery pick. He's probably going to go to a top program in the country, but he could be a guy that benefits from staying another year in school, for his overall just development as a player. So, if you're LeBron, I would worry about, putting this sort of pressure on your son at this point. But also at the same time, it's like it's probably been LeBron's dream. It's obviously Bronny's dream to make it into the NBA, and who doesn't want to play with their son at that level? It'd be something really just never seen before. But I could also see it turning out badly. If LeBron is only playing 2 more years at the point when Bronny comes into the league, and then you got Bronny on this team where all the rest of the guys just don't think he's really earned his spot on this team, where he doesn't really deserve this. So that's where I kind of see both sides to the argument. But on paper, how could you blame LeBron for wanting to live out him and his son's dreams together? That's just as cool as it gets.
No, it is, and no, I don't think you can blame it all. I mean, it's the last father son duo I can think of that played together. I mean, I can only think of right now. I can only think of Ken Griffey and Ken Griffey Jr. And the fact that they were able to both play in Seattle that one year, and the fact that they had such an iconic moment of hitting back-to-back home runs together, playing in the outfield together, like that just seems incredible. And being able to see LeBron James, who by the end of his career, look, whether we don't need to get into the debate, and I don't want to. He's a top 2 player of all time, bare minimum. So at the end of his career, seeing someone who has left such an imprint on the game, being able to do something like as simple as play the game that he loves with his son, like that's incredible, and that transcends sports. So no, of course I would love to see that. The question then becomes though, like, do you want to see it happen on your team? Honestly, I wouldn't hate it. Like if we're talking 2 years from now and the Pistons haven't been doing anything great, and Cade Cunningham and he's kind of getting wasted here. They haven't really been able to build around him. Free up 2 roster spots. Bring Bronny in. Bring LeBron in. I would be totally down for that. Unless you're a team like, the doomsday scenario in this is that Golden State is able to open up some roster spots, and we're seeing LeBron and Steph play together again. And who knows, maybe Kevin Durant returns. That just seeing a LeBron James free agency where his move is based on Bronny, like that to me could open up the door for like Super Team 5.0, where LeBron James goes to somewhere on a vet minimum, someone mortgaged their future just for Bronny James, and then they bring in like it was, say Milwaukee for whatever reason was able to make moves, for some reason was able to get someone like Damian Lillard. They had prime Giannis, and they got LeBron on a vet minimum. Like that kind of stuff that could happen because of this move. Like basically just build an all-star team. Now seeing something like that would be nuts. But I mean, with this happening, with him saying this, I mean, maybe it's realistic. I don't know.
Yeah, I just want to say that Bronny he's not like a top recruit in the country, but he's also not like a slouch. It's not like Dan, like you said, he's not like a 3-star blue chip guy that is just, someone's just going to take a chance on him for the heck of it. I mean, he's the 34th player in the nation in the class of 2023. So he's not a surefire. He's not like someone like maybe like a Paolo Banchero coming out of high school or something like that, where you're like, okay, this guy has all the tools, because he's a 6'3" combo guard that doesn't really jump off the page at you. He doesn't have, you know, he's not he doesn't have that size or that frame that really excites you, like maybe like a guy like Trevor Keels or something like that. But for a small market team, Dan, I know you're a Detroit fan, so I think even like if you're able to take the shot, I think you certainly do, because I think maybe it's like let's say they get Bronny James and they get LeBron James and make the playoffs as like 5 seed. I think that shows the rest of the league, hey, you might, if you're a big player, you might be able to go to these smaller market teams and make it happen. Like it's not impossible. LeBron just did it and got them to, the second, third round of the playoffs. So it's possible because I think that the narrative around the league is that you can't go to a small market and succeed. You can't, as a big time player, as a guy like Kevin Durant, you can't go to Washington, you can't go to Minnesota and succeed. And I don't think that's necessarily true. And I think that could maybe, I don't think it'd do it immediately, but it could change the narrative of some of these smaller market teams. So I think that a move like this would kind of be a bigger picture thing, not only with LeBron, not only with Bronny, but it could be, okay, you got this guy that's really good. And you got a solid backcourt now with Cade Cunningham and Bronny James. I don't know what the deal is with a guy like Killian Hayes or something like that. I'm not all that familiar with Detroit, but you got these two guys in the backcourt. You got LeBron James at power forward, and who knows how long he's there? Who knows how long he has left? I'm not sure anyone really knows that, but I think it could be really interesting to see the impact if LeBron ends up going to a smaller market team, the impact it would have on the outlook of teams like that.
I also think the draft day drama would just be so exciting to watch. With depending on how Bronny's draft class ends up working out, but just all of there's so many teams in the NBA that have just been either mediocre or just terribly run franchises for so long, and there could be a lot of surefire things in that lottery. And then you've got teams like the Magic, the Kings, all these franchises that are really just stuck in mud, going nowhere, kind of looking at each other like, all right, who's gonna take this swing? And then I bet some teams will probably trade up, and then all that drama I think would be just so fun to watch.
Let me say this: I am fully now on board with the idea that Virginia Tech should offer Bronny James. He does not have an offer. I think that we should be the first school to officially offer him. And look, they weren't able to get the son of arguably the greatest player in their history. They were not able to bring Steph to Blacksburg. They were not able to have him follow in the steps of his dad, Dell. Why not? Let's not try to repeat history. Let's get the son of one of not just the greatest players in Virginia Tech history, one of the greatest basketball players in all of basketball history. Let's get his son here. I'm starting the campaign today. Bronny James to Virginia Tech. Let's make him a Hokie. All right. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of that break, Wyatt's got some Aaron Rodgers news for us. Stick around. You are listening to 3304 Daily.
We welcome you inside Cassell Coliseum, where today the Virginia Tech Hokies and the North Carolina Tar Heels would do battle in a crucial matchup between two teams that sit on the bubble. Murphy on the inbound gives up to Justin Mutt to the top of the rimmer. Tries to look on down, finds Aluma, goes up, but denied by Baycott. Carolina has numbers coming the other way. A deep three from R.J. Davis, and that will silence the air ball chance as it falls through the basket. And North Carolina is feeling it. Drives inside, gets his defender to fall. Layup cannot go as Puff Johnson played great defense. Now bounce pass to Couture inside of Justin Mutt. Right-handed layup is good. A nice defensive pickpocket from the Hokies turns into 2 points, and Virginia Tech up 24-21. He's on that far side. He's trying to back down Darius Maddox. Can't find anything. Caleb Love for a deep triple. Oh my! What a three from Caleb Love. A 7-point lead for North Carolina, their biggest of the game. Caleb Love drives inside. A wide open R.J. Davis. Oh my! North Carolina cannot miss. 7 of 12 from behind the arc.
Storm drive to the inside, looking for somewhere to kick it out. Keve straightaway three, and he knocks it down. Keve Aluma from the top of the key, nothing but net. Caleb Love, top of the key, gives it off. Manic, right wing. Manic back to Caleb Love on that T of the VT logo. Caleb Love, deep three, step back, and he knocks it down. Caleb Love puts the three-point fingers up to his eyeballs, looking through the goggles of a possible North Carolina pull-away lead. Naheem Aline off the feed from Murphy, knifes his way to the inside, and one bucket, Naheem Aline, and that's what the Hokies needed. Right wing, Justin Much, dish inside, Aluma trying to back down Baycott, lays it up and in with the left hand. Keve Aluma extends that left hand up into the Blacksburg air. Wants to drive to the inside, backing down Brady Manic, lays it up and in with the left hand. Count it, and the foul. Justin Much will go to the line for a chance at a three-point play. RJ Davis goes at Murphy, dish to Manic, who slams it down and silences the crowd in Blacksburg.
3304 Daily, welcome back in. You just heard Andy Losi and Giovanni Heater on the call of the men's basketball loss to UNC. All right, we welcome in Julian Ferdman as well. Wyatt, you have some Aaron Rodgers news here for us.
Yeah, really some Aaron Rodgers news and really just some overall quarterback news in the NFL I wanted to get to just with the NFL season coming to a close 2 weekends ago. I don't know if you guys know this, but the last 2 Super Bowl champion quarterbacks were signed in the previous offseason, in Tom Brady for the Buccaneers and then Matt Stafford for the Rams. So I'm just thinking with a lot of guys or with a lot of teams that have championship caliber rosters. I got a huge list here. The Broncos, the Buccaneers, the Saints, the Steelers. I think you could throw the Panthers in that category, the Vikings, even the Commanders. These are teams that have championship caliber rosters or possibly championship caliber rosters. Just they don't have the quarterback position right. So I want to look at some possible free agents and some possible trade or some possibly traded quarterbacks. And it all starts with Aaron Rodgers, who posted the very cryptic Instagram post thanking all of his teammates, all of the people that have been really close with him. And, I'm a Bears fan, and at this point, I just can't really get behind anything Aaron Rodgers is doing other than it just being an attention move, because that's what Aaron Rodgers loves, attention at the end of the day. He went on Pat McAfee and said that he wasn't going to announce anything today. The Packers GM has a press conference on Wednesday, so just a lot of eyebrows were being raised, but I really do think, this is just an attention move, and whatever Aaron Rodgers is going to do, I just think he's going to get the most buzz surrounding it. So what do you guys think Aaron Rodgers is staying or retiring? I wanted to know where you guys think maybe either the best fit is or what is the most likely situation, because you've got the Packers and the Broncos with the best 2 odds for where Aaron Rodgers will play next season. But I honestly think retirement seems most likely. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on that.
There have been some rumors regarding retirement floating around, especially today. We've touched on this before. I really do think Denver would be a good fit for him. New scene, better overall weapons. There's at least a level of comfortability there with Nathaniel Hackett as the head coach. So I would honestly like to see him go to Denver. I wouldn't like to see, some people say, oh, Devontae Adams should follow him there. I honestly think he should just go somewhere else where there's not just the one guy that he's comfortable throwing it to, because there are multiple guys he should feel comfortable throwing it to in Denver. Whether or not he would do that is, beyond our control. But the fact is, they have a litany of weapons there. So I think that would be the best fit for him. Honestly, I feel like just get out of Green Bay. Not necessarily because they can't, surround you with enough talent. I think that there is a lot of blame to be placed on him for his postseason performances. But, they haven't been the best team when it comes to drafting. I'm actually looking at a chart right now that was released, I want to say either today or yesterday. It is a chart dating back over the last 2 seasons of how well each NFL team has drafted with quarterbacks excluded. How many wins above replacement has each team produced outside of quarterbacks? And the Packers are in the bottom half of the league when it comes to that. They're not the worst. They're not even bottom 10, but they're not doing enough. Denver has not been that hot either, but even still, they do have a solid roster. I think that Denver for him just makes the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, to me, just looking infrastructure wise, right? Because when you look at these rosters, how you can surround your quarterback, I think that the Packers are still the best football option when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. You know, whether you look at what they have in the talent up front, when you look at David Bakhtiari, Elston Jenkins, the young center they got in from Ohio State, Josh Myers. There's a lot of guys up front. And then look at their weapons in AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. They've had a really dominant run game for the past 3 seasons under Matt LaFleur there. So I think from a football situation, obviously you look at the youth they have on defense, whereas with Denver secondary, a lot of them are older. You know, Kareem Jackson's a free agent. Kyle Fuller, who obviously went to Virginia Tech, is a free agent. To me, unless Aaron's just trying to get away from Green Bay, which I can kind of understand, there just might be some fatigue there with everything that's gone on and the narrative surrounding him there. To me, football wise, I don't think it's a competition. I think Denver probably has younger weapons. But, you know, apart from that, I think the supporting cast in Green Bay, especially on defense, like Eric Stokes, Jair Alexander, Rashawn Gary, all these guys are nowhere close to 30. They're all really young. And they can get even better. Darnell Savage. I think there's a lot of guys for Green Bay to move forward with in this new era of Packers football, whether that's with Rodgers or with Jordan Love.
Yeah, I'm of full agreement with Dan. I think the Broncos, it was kind of what was rumored for a certain amount of time when it was, stated that Rodgers was unhappy, a trade was imminent. That was kind of the storyline over the summer for I don't even know how long. It was maybe a week where that smoke was flying around. And the Broncos were the main conversation piece with that. I just like the pieces that they have. The wide receivers, I think overall it's a better unit. I know Devontae Adams carries a lot of that load in Green Bay, but you got Jerry Judy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Noah Fant at tight end. I mean, it's a solid enough core to where Rodgers can do what he needs to do and get this team a good amount of wins. But that post really seemed like a farewell to me. I mean, it wasn't very vague. I mean, it was pretty obvious what he was saying. He was using a lot of past tense. I loved playing with these guys. Nothing against them, all this and that. Seemed like a farewell to me. I don't know if it's a farewell to football in general or a farewell to Green Bay, but what makes me confident in that it's probably a farewell to Green Bay is that I know Aaron Rodgers knows he has football left in him. He's putting up MVP numbers this season. I don't think he's just going to up and leave that. So I would not be surprised at all to see him end up in Denver. And I think that creates a really, really interesting football team. But again, who knows? Aaron Rodgers is a mysterious guy, as we all know. So I don't really know what's going on, but I'd like to say that he's trying to get out of Green Bay and possibly go to Denver.
Yeah, Ryan, you made some good points there. Aaron Rodgers is just as unpredictable and as mysterious as they come, as polarizing a figure in the league as they come. But I actually really agree with Julian there because the Broncos, like on paper, I guess they make sense, with his former offensive coordinator being the new head coach and the young wideouts and the young pieces they have on defense and like Patrick Surtain. But like the Packers had a top 5 defense this year. And he's not going to be able to build the same chemistry with any of those guys that he has with Devontae Adams right now. So I think the way their season ended and in the fashion it did, I think Aaron Rodgers knows that he has a lot of the blame for how their Packers, they came up short in the playoffs. So that's just where the Broncos don't make all too much sense to me, but it's just always been the rumored destination. They're a great organization and they do have multiple receiving weapons. And I think Packers, they do have to get, another receiving weapon outside of Devontae Adams. Not having Robert Tonyan hurt him a lot. But let's move on to the next quarterback, Russell Wilson. He seemed to be very disgruntled in the last offseason. And this is a team that's seemingly continued to get worse and worse every year. And now it seems to like where they're almost at the point where with where they're at in the division, that they need to start rebuilding possibly for the future. And so I think I definitely think Russell Wilson is going to at some point this offseason demand a trade. It's just where to and what fits are the best. Right now, the Bucks, the Saints, and the Steelers have the best odds. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on that.
Well, we've mentioned Russell Wilson, and the one team that I brought up for him was actually Washington. Uh, but that is with the mindset that I think that the Bucs would go after Deshaun Watson. But a little bit of news in his camp is that he is going to, I think it's 9 of the 22 cases he is going to have to testify for. So, as we get closer and closer to a conclusion on that side, it becomes less and less likely that, we're going to see him actually get moved. We're going to see a team want to acquire him. Honestly, we don't even know if the NFL is going to take action against him and suspend him, let alone, is he going to jail? So the Bucs definitely are making a move. There is no way they go into next season with Kyle Trask as their starting quarterback. They have a lot of pieces still on a title contender. It's not the strongest division. They are definitely a quarterback away from being back in that contention sphere. And I'm going to bring up that chart. It's them after Kansas City. Kansas City and Tampa Bay are the two best drafting teams around the quarterback. They have built the best rosters, excluding their quarterback draft picks in the last 2 drafts. So they have done a really good job of surrounding the entire team. They've filled the entire team with talent. So a place like Tampa Bay, to me, would be a good place for Russell Wilson to go. And, man, Seattle's got to blow that thing up eventually and Russell Wilson is their most valuable asset and the quickest path to a rebuild. They got to let go of Pete Carroll. They just need a whole clean out of the organization. They just need to bottom out, and because they're in a really tough division. They're not winning that in the next couple of years. So they have to take their strides in the bottom of the league and then, go on, move on from that, and then rebuild in a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the situation for the Seahawks, Pete Carroll's the oldest coach in the NFL, and it's hard to tell if he wants to stay there for a rebuild or not. For us, I think the best situation would be to a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, who have the draft capital to make this happen in one off season. They have 3 firsts this year, and I think the infrastructure there with Devontae Smith, with the offensive line that they have, the young pieces, and Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson. Lane Johnson also came off an All-Pro season, as well as Jason Kelsey, who's getting up there in age. I think the Eagles are the best fit for Russ.
Yeah, I think honestly for Russell Wilson, when it comes to him, the most important thing is him being protected. That's what he's been so, disgruntled about in Seattle over the past few years. And I'm going to bring up a name, in terms of just the protection side of things, the Bucs make the most sense. They have a great offensive line, at least 2 or 3 all-pro guys or all-pro level guys on that offensive line. But I'm going to keep an eye on the Indianapolis Colts because they have arguably the best offensive line in the league. They don't have the draft capital to acquire Russ in a trade, but I could see Russell Wilson sort of demanding a trade to that area. You've got one of the best running backs in the league and Jonathan Taylor, that Wisconsin connection there too. So the Colts make a lot of sense to me because they just seem so distraught with how everything ended last year with Carson Wentz, and you already had the reports coming out that they're planning on moving on from him when the new league year begins. So I just think they're ready and poised to make a big splash move. So I just want to take a look at, those few quarterbacks and what we really think about them coming into this offseason.
Does someone else want to start on this one?
I thought we
the
were
NBA
going on the next one.
75. Yeah.
Yeah, you got it, Julian.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, ESPN came out with their new their ranking of the 75 best players in the NBA that got announced or to ever play in the NBA. There's definitely some interesting stuff. When you look at how they ranked it out, Durant at 12, Steph Curry at 16, which I think is absurd.
Well, hang on, Julian, because I think Ryan wanted to go on with this one. I think he wanted to kind of gauge our interest on some of these names.
Yeah, I just wanted to get y'all's opinions on a couple of them. I just listed a couple out, Julian, like you said. I think you said Steph at 16. That's a little absurd to me, but I just want to get a couple that stood out to me. Overrated, underrated. Just give me a quick reaction, knee jerk when I say them. Durant at 12. What are you guys thinking on that one?
I think I think that can be fair. I think he's definitely top 15. Here's the thing. It seems very difficult for the best players of our generation that we're witnessing now, besides LeBron. It's very difficult apparently for them to crack the top 10. The guys like Durant and Steph are without a doubt in that conversation, but it's very hard to see people push out guys like Wilt, push out guys like Shaq, push out guys like Kareem for guys like Steph and KD. I don't know what it'll take for the end of their careers for them to get into that top 10. For me, they might be, but at the end of the day, it's just because of the different eras. Like if you look at the top 10 players on most people's lists, at least 6 of the players are centers. You know, it's Jordan, it's LeBron, it's like 6 centers because they just dominated the game when they played, and that was the way the game was played. And you're not seeing the Stephs and the Durants. So I'm gonna go with Durant at 12, and I think that's good. Steph at 16 is way too low. He's definitely top 15, and I think in terms of greatness, he's probably a tick above Durant. Might be a couple, but no, I think for now I'll go with fair. But I will say it just seems hard for the best players of this generation to crack that top 10.
Yeah, I think Steph and KD are both. They should be higher on this list. You're talking about Steph, who's literally undisputed the best shooter of the basketball ever, and then Kevin Durant, who's the most unguardable player ever. And then you can talk about, the wins, the finals MVPs, the longevity, Kevin Durant dealing with injuries. But I just think on paper, these are 2 of the top 10 basketball players of all time. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Durant's probably around the 12 to 15 range. I think that's fair for him. Just when you look at he couldn't get it done in Oklahoma City, and he had to join a team that already was a very formidable, powerhouse kind of machine in the Warriors. Obviously, he helped them out, but Steph was always, in my opinion, he was the guy who buttered their bread, and Durant was just the extra stuff on top because he was in double coverage. He was never double covered on the Warriors because of the way teams would defend Steph. And I think Durant 12 to 15 is fine. I think Steph at 16 is ludicrous. When you talk about the impact this guy has, even when he doesn't have the ball, teams are sending 2 or 3 guys at him off the ball. I think the way Steph can just completely change your offense without touching the ball, I think 16 is disgraceful for someone as good as he is.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And just a couple more I want to point out and just give me your quick reactions because I do have one question I want to get to before the end of this segment that I think will be a kind of interesting discussion. Giannis at 18 and Harden at 50. I'm going to say Harden at 50 it's tough because of some of the problems he's caused at places he's at and, the lack of, winning titles. I think puts him at 50 is kind of fair. Giannis at 18, though, I think that's a little low. Tell me what you guys think.
All right, I'm interested in your take on Giannis. Giannis is... It's crazy because the way he came into the league, it took him a couple of years, but we knew that he was an athletically gifted freak. And then he was just able to finally translate that in year, I want to say 4. And now he's got 2 MVPs, he's got a ring, and he's doing things. He has Shaq stats, but he plays nothing like Shaq. He is not the traditional back to the basket player. He's a guy that can handle the ball. And even still, he's adding a little bit of a shot to his game. It's not the most consistent thing in the world, but it's something. It's better than Ben Simmons. The thing with Giannis, I think he has room to grow. I think by the time we're talking the NBA 100, or even something like the NBA 80, 5 years from now, I think you're talking about him in the top 15. His talent, and that's the thing too. Giannis, from an athletic standpoint, might be the most gifted player ever. Like, he might be up there with a guy like Wilt, who, if we have to believe the legends of the reports on him, Wilt Chamberlain was an Olympic athlete that happened to be 7 feet tall and played basketball. Now, he obviously played against weaker competition, but even still, from an athletically gifted standpoint, Giannis might be up there as one of the 5 greatest players of all time. So, yeah, he definitely has he definitely has reason to be there. I would say it's a little bit over right now. I think if his career ended today, we would think about him as one of the, again, most gifted players ever, but it's just he didn't have quite enough. I think by the time it's done, I think he will have done enough to, without a doubt, be a top 15 player of all time, maybe even top 10. But right now, I think I honestly might just go a little bit over.
Yeah, the only reason I didn't really get too worked up about Giannis is because we just know he's going to get to that top 10, top 5 point, at some point because he's already accomplished, everything you can, a finals MVP, multiple MVPs. Um, like he's accomplished everything you can at such a young age. And like right after the Bucks beat the Suns, the conversations immediately went to best power forwards of all time, Dirk, Duncan, and then Giannis. And I think the only reason you can really put those two other guys ahead of him is just because of the longevity and where they're at in terms of the NBA history books. But I'm not too concerned about Giannis. He's gonna get there.
Yeah, I just wanted to hit on Giannis really quickly. I mean, this guy's 27 years old, and he's every single accomplishment you can have for an NBA player. He has it. We're only halfway through his career, and he has a pretty similar resume to someone like Dirk Nowitzki. When you talk about how they've all each won one title, and they've been with their one franchise for their entire career so far. So I mean, Giannis, he's such a singular athletic talent. There's no one quite like him. I don't think we'll ever see someone like him. And yeah, I think Harden at 50. You talk about going up against those Warriors teams. In that 2017, that 2018, the first season with Paul, Harden was 42-3 in the regular season when both of them were healthy. That's never been seen before. It's just a shame that they ran into probably the most talented team ever. I think Harden would be viewed a lot differently if he didn't have to face the Warriors to get to the pinnacle.
So I quickly want to get your guys' thoughts on this question. I want you guys to dig a little deep for this one, maybe think a little bit outside the box. When the 100th anniversary of the NBA comes around in 2046, who is one player that you would say is a lock for that list?
Now, is this someone that we should try to grab that isn't on the list right now? Like, if we say LeBron, I think that's cheating a little bit.
Well,
So
he's
someone
already
that's
on it.
not on
He's
the
on
list
it.
right now, someone that's playing in the
Right.
NBA who can make the top 100.
Right. Like I'll give you mine. I'll say I think I'd go either John Morant or Nikola Jokic.
I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to rings. And I mean, when it comes to the NBA 100, they're going to give you a list of 100 players. So basically, who are the next 25, and then who maybe is on that fringe. John Morant to me is probably the guy that's that close. Nikola Jokic is obviously a great pick as well. Just thinking of anyone else that could maybe be on the list. I think it's too late for a guy like DeMar DeRozan, who's having a really nice late thing to his career. But I think even if he can continue to play for the next however many years he's in the league, I don't think he makes it. I'll go with no, I think I'm just going to double up with you. I'm going to go John Morant. I think he's the popular pick.
Yeah, I got one with I think we're gonna go a little outside the box. Obviously, he was a number one overall pick, but I think Anthony Edwards has all of the athletic talent requisite to make this list. You talk about a guy who's 6'5", 225 pounds, can get to the rim, has already shown improvement when it comes to his jumper. And obviously, when you're as athletic and strong as he is, you can tell that he has the upside to be an elite defender as well. So try not to be like. I mean, Morant also is he's also obviously a very elite athlete, but I think Edwards, man, if he can just improve his finishing at the rim and maybe develop a little bit of that mid-range game, I think you're going to be talking about him and Dwayne Wade and James Harden and Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. I think that's the kind of names you can be talking about with someone as physically and athletically gifted as Anthony Edwards.
You guys, I think Kyrie Irving is one of the biggest snubs from this 75 list, and he has to be on that top 100 list. Like Damian Lillard is sitting here at 39, and I love Damian Lillard, a huge Damian Lillard fan. I just don't think Damian Lillard is anywhere near as good as Kyrie Irving. Like Kyrie Irving is, we talk to people in the league, he's one of the most skilled players to ever do it. And you can talk about everything, all the, extracurricular activities, how he's bounced around teams, and he's also there's a gripe for the injuries and him not being able to stay healthy. But you look at how he hit a shot, the biggest shot in one of the most historic comeback, in the league history, and with just how good he is in terms of handling, finishing at the rim, shooting. He's one of the most skilled basketball players of all time. And I also think Dwight Howard needs to be on the next list whenever it comes out because he's another snub. This is a guy that carried some pretty mediocre but solid Magic teams to the finals. And obviously he'd end up getting stopped by Kobe Bryant and those great Lakers teams. But I think Dwight Howard's another guy that was so dominant for so long, and he needs to be on this list in some form or fashion.
Final word on this from me. Cade Cunningham is 100% going to be on that NBA 100 list as a top 20 player of all time after he brings a three-peat to Detroit. All right, let's move on to here. Last 5 minutes of the show. Let's keep a good thing rolling. Here we go, guys. Day 2 officially. What you watching? All right, let me start off. We're gonna go back to the college basketball sector. I'm gonna go to the men's side tonight, as opposed to my women's pick from last night. And let's focus in on ESPN2 at 7 o'clock, an SEC matchup. How about this line? Ranked Arkansas, top 20 Arkansas, number 18 in the country, going to Florida. Unranked, road matchup. This is an even spread. So, I mean, we're expecting some fireworks again. We're expecting something a la Baylor, Oklahoma State last night. Maybe not as dramatic, but we could be smelling upset for the Gators.
I think it's a big letdown spot for Florida, just coming off of their biggest win of the season, beating Auburn. And Arkansas has been playing really well as of late. So I like Arkansas on that, but that is going to be a great matchup.
Ryan, what do you got for us?
I like Arkansas too. You know, it's kind of an interesting matchup because Florida is, they beat Auburn just a few days ago. So I think that creates an interesting matchup. But at the end of the day, Arkansas, I believe, is one of the teams to watch out for in the tournament because they're just so dangerous. They have scores all over the floor. So I got Arkansas, and I think it could be a close game, but I think Arkansas pulls away.
What's your game for the night?
I have to say Villanova and UConn. I think that's a really intriguing Big East matchup. Two teams are getting hot at the right time. And it's always a battle between these two teams. It's at UConn, so that should be really interesting. And I'm sure you guys heard what happened the last time game was at UConn. James Bouknight got kind of kicked off the court by the referee, so that was kind of an interesting development. But it should be a really good one.
Yeah, the Big East has been so good this year. That Ryan, you actually stole my pick, so thank you for that. I love UConn in this game. They're playing great basketball, and they've got a chance to really kind of tighten the gap in the Big East standings. But instead, I will take Kansas State, Kansas, not because I think necessarily it'll be a great game, but it's a rivalry matchup. And who could forget the huge brawl that broke out between these two teams last season? Was the last season? Might have been 2 seasons ago, but
I was just about to ask. It feels like it was longer than that. It feels like it's been years since that happened. That meme was legendary, man. I mean, dude was just coming at someone with a chair. Oh man, I will never forget that night. That night was spectacular on social media.
So just for the possibility that could happen again, Kansas is going to be an electric environment. So I'll go with Kansas State at Kansas. Kansas State big underdogs in that one.
All right, Julian. Last night I believe you offered up. Did you offer us up the Baylor Oklahoma State game? All right, so you gave us a winner last night. You gave us a pretty good one. So let's see what you got in day 2.
As someone who really loves the NBA draft, I'm big into Michigan State and Iowa tonight. Obviously Max Christie is a pretty big time prospect. He's got some first round buzz, and then Keegan Murray. You talk about a dynamic 6'8", 240-pound athlete. This guy is going to be a lottery pick. I'm really interested to see how he performs tonight. Iowa's obviously ranked. These two teams have the same record. They've got the home court advantage. I'm really excited to see how Keegan Murray can go up against Michigan State's bigs and see how he does on the inside.
Michigan State is playing awful right now. They are not playing well. Tom Izzo today actually just had a really nice answer, a funny answer. We didn't get to it. We might talk about it tomorrow with the whole Juwan Howard situation. Someone asked him, hey, should we get rid of handshake lines? And he basically called it a farce. So we'll see how that goes. But anytime, this is my rule growing up, anytime Michigan State basketball is playing on a Tuesday night, they lose. It just happens. So chalk this one up as an L for the Spartans. But thank you for that pick anyways, Julian. All right. So day 2 in the books for what you're watching. There you have it. I offered you basically all college basketball across the board. I offered you up an SEC matchup between Arkansas and Florida. Ryan is giving us the Big East matchup between Nova and UConn, with UConn actually favored in that game by 2. Wyatt is echoing Colbjorn Bergstrom and giving us the Kansas State-Kansas game. And then Julian Ferdman for our NBA Draft Junkies, giving you MSU at Iowa at 7 on ESPN. All right, that's going to do it for us here on a Tuesday. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow on 3304 Daily. Thank you for listening and take care.